Today we're going to be talking about early childhood communication, specifically listening skills, because it's important to remember how important it is to really perfect our listening skills to the best of our ability. We're going to focus on listening because it's something that we do every day, all day. We do it, of course, with the children in our classrooms, with our coworkers, our family members, our acquaintances, and even when we run to the grocery store with the general public. So I want to focus on both types and styles of listening in this PowerPoint. So the types of listening are inactive, selective, active, and reflective. And the styles of listening are people-oriented, content-oriented, action-oriented, and time-oriented. In Chapter 9 of your text, the styles of listening are explained well, and there's some good examples there. I just want to highlight some additional information in this presentation. So the types of listening. When we talk about inactive listening, we're really talking about hearing the words but not understanding the meaning. Sometimes we'll hear the phrase in one ear and out the other. I was talking to him and what I was saying just went in one ear and out the other. And this often happens when we're distracted, which, as we know, in a busy classroom, we are often distracted. But it is crucial that when we are communicating with children, we put ourselves at their level. That for me, that means getting down on a knee, but for you, it might just be bending to the child's level where we can make direct eye contact, have a look on our face that says, I'm interested in what you're saying. We might even say, what is it that you need, Maria? So that they know that we are engaging with them. And you'll see for all of the types of listening, I have these words. Work on being consciously in the moment to help you strengthen your listening skills. This is a mindfulness practice. If you practice yoga, you will hear it there. Many of the social emotional learning programs that you are researching talk about being in the moment with the child. And so I want you to try to think about that this week as you are listening to children. Are you really there with them? Are you really in the moment where you're engaging in eye contact and you're doing more than inactive listening? When we talk about selective listening, we really are talking about our unconscious filter. All of us have one, where we hear only what we want to hear, or we hear only part of a message. And again, that can be due to distraction, but it can also be due to the lens through which we're seeing the child. You might think for a moment about a child that you know you often really listen to, and a child that you often try to put off or not have a conversation with, and that becomes part of our filter. So as long as we acknowledge to ourselves that we have filters and we work on being consciously in the moment with all children, we will move beyond selective listening. We've all heard of the term active listening and how important that is. Active listening is when we make a conscious effort to move beyond just hearing the words, but to hear the complete message that the child is sending to us. So it takes into consideration both the verbal communication as well as the nonverbal communication. And it also uses empathy as a starting point and is non-judgmental. We are simply listening to the words of the child. And again, if we can work on being consciously in the moment, it will help strengthen our listening skills. And finally, reflective listening is when we're listening for the whole message. I've heard it said we're listening with our heart. This is very, very important when we're dealing with something that's extremely important or a complicated issue, or when a child is coming to you with a conflict. And reflective listening is also used to clarify what's being said to make sure that both parties understand and agree on the message. So moving into the styles of communication, I would say in our field, many of us are people-oriented. And by that I mean we show strong concern for others' feelings. We are external in our focus and we get energy from others. We often listen to another person's stories as a way of listening to what they're trying to communicate to us, and then we use our own stories as a way to communicate back. And we focus on emotions, and again, that skill of empathy is present. On each of these slides where I'm discussing styles, the last point in italics is something that could possibly be a negative point in using a particular style. So if we're people-oriented, it could be seen as an intrusive style if we're trying to connect with others who have a very different style and maybe are not as people-oriented as we are. So we just need to be mindful of when we are listening to others and communicating with others, that we understand that there are different styles and we acknowledge and respect all styles. So another style is content-oriented. This has more to do with focus on what is being said, assessing the expertise and the truthfulness of what is being said as it's being said. So you can see that maybe this is not a listening style where the person is completely present if he or she is assessing at the same time as listening. This style focuses on facts, evidence, details, and solid logical arguments. The possible negative side of this style is that a person might be ignoring the feelings of others when there is too much focus on evidence. And as you know, when we're listening to someone, part of what we're doing is employing our empathetic skill and trying to understand the feeling of the other person as well. A third style is action-oriented. And someone who is action-oriented is very interested in the results. This is a person who wants to know what actions need to take place. So they like to have lists. They like to have plans of actions, structure. And this is a person who's grounded in concrete reality, not so interested in the feelings of others. The negative possibility is that someone who's action-oriented can be impatient, causing others to feel as if they need to rush to conclusions rather than taking in all of the necessary information. And finally, there's the time-oriented style. This is a person who's very organized and prefers time frames. They like to know if they're going to a meeting that the meeting is scheduled for 1 hour and they're only going to be there for 1 hour. They're very to the point, and they prefer compartmentalized schedules and routines. So we in our field have to be time oriented. And by the way, none of us only have one of these styles. We move throughout these styles depending on the situation, depending on different times of the day, but we usually have a preference. The negative possibility for a time-oriented person is that they may make others feel constrained when they're trying to fully understand an issue. I sometimes can be time-oriented in conversations because I know that I need to move on to the next thing, where the other person might be feeling like, well, wait, I need to explore this issue a little bit further. So that's when I try to pop back over into my people-oriented style to try to fully understand. So I hope that this brings some deeper insight and understanding for you into listening as part of communication.